Hello guys, in this video we will be creating a complete landing page of a website using just HTML and CSS. So there are two main things that you learn from this video, and the first one is that you will have a real world experience where a client gives you an existing design in form of an image or sketch files, and your work is to convert the design into a pixel perfect HTML and CSS web page. The second thing is that you will get to exercise your layout skills because we will be using a lot of Flexbox and CSS Grid in this video. We will also make the web page to be mobile responsive. So on mobile, you can see that it still looks really good. In case you're new here, my name is Charles. I am a JavaScript developer, a coffee lover, and I create coding content here on YouTube. Now that sounds awesome, so make sure you subscribe and turn on post notification so that you don't miss any of my videos. As I said before, we will be taking an existing design and converting it into a HTML and CSS web page. And the best place to get existing designs is from Frontend Mentor. And this platform have a lot of challenges where they give you existing designs and your work is to convert them into web pages using HTML, CSS, and in some cases by using JavaScript. So if you want to exercise your front-end skills, you should definitely visit Frontend Mentor and take some of these challenges because they will help you to get job ready. So I chose one of the designs, and the one that I chose is called Fylo dark theme landing page, and you can download the starter files from the challenge. Once you click a particular challenge, you'll get to a page like this one, and then you can download the starter files for free, and you can see what is included in the starter files. JPEG design files for mobile and desktop layouts. So these are images for the mobile and the desktop layout, and then optimized assets. So there'll be things like icons and these other images. There is a readme file to help you get started, so you can read through the readme file by uploading the files on GitHub, and you can see what is included there. There is also a style guide for things like fonts and colors, and then we'll have a pre-written HTML file. The content that is in here you won't need to type, just copy and pasting. And then there are also sketch files for these designs, but this one you need to buy them, and this is one of the way that you can support this platform. If you are capable of buying the sketch files, you can do so. And another importance is that you'll be able to come up with a pixel perfect HTML and CSS web page. But when using an image, we'll just be estimating the size of different sections of the web page. But don't worry, I'll show you how we will do that. Okay, so go ahead and download the starter files. Once you download the starter files, you'll get them as a zipped file, and when you unzip, you'll get search files like this one. Now all I'll do is to open this one with Visual Studio Code. I'll click the path at the top here on Windows, type CMD, and this will open the command prompt on that particular path. And then all I'll do to open Visual Studio Code is type code and a period at the end here. When I enter, that will open our files on Visual Studio Code. So here we are, and we can explore what we have here. The most important thing here, we have the designs files. So in form of image, when I go to desktop, this image can open just right here. So you can see this is the image, the designs that we have, and this is what we will be following to convert it into a HTML and CSS web page. And there is also the mobile design and also desktop preview. And then right here we have images. So these are different resources that we will be needing. It includes this image, these icons, and these other images for testimonials and stuff like that. And then I'll just minimize this one, we have a pre-existing index.html file, and what this one has is some content written here. So you can see all this content that we'll be needing to use and fill in our web page, so that we don't have to type everything from scratch. And then we have a readme, so you can go through this on your own. And then right here we have the style guide, and this style guide includes things like the colors, the fonts that we'll be using, and some other instructions. So this is very important right here. The designs that we have are for desktop, which have a width of 1440px. So my screen is a bit smaller. I think it's around 1280px. So the design for the design that we will be coming up with won't look exactly the same as the one that we have in that image, but we'll try our best to make it to be pixel perfect. And then we have the design for the mobile. It's specifically for 375px width of a screen, and this particular mobile is iPhone X. So in other mobile devices it may not look very good. And then we have the colors here. So I'll show you how we will handle the colors simply without coming back and forth to this page. So this is another important thing right here. We have some font families that we'll be using, and for heading, call to actions, head, navigation, etc., we'll be using railway. And then for the body we'll be using Open Sans. So we'll have to import these fonts from Google Fonts. And then for the icons, you have different options for the icons. For the social icons, to be specific, you can choose from one of these, but the one that we will be using is Font Awesome Icons. Okay, and I'll show you how we will link Font Awesome Icons to our project. Now I'll go back to our designs files here. What I'll do is that I'll open these designs files with Figma. Okay, and here we are. So Figma is a very good tool for UI and UX designs, and the reason that I opened this one in Figma is because in Figma we'll be able to easily estimate the size of different components, the spacing, and the images and other stuff. So Figma will give us a very easy time, instead of just blindly guessing the pixels, because we don't have the sketch files and we are using an image. So Figma will really help us. And another thing is that Figma is good at maintaining the pixels. So when I click this image, you can see that it's already at 1440px. And then when I click the mobile, it's at 375px. And if at any case this is not exactly the same, all you can do is to click it, and then when you come here at designs, you can adjust the width and the height. Okay, and most important thing is the width. So I can easily change this one to another thing like 380, and when I click outside, you can see that the mobile will adjust, but we want to remain to the design which was specifically made for 375px. So you can easily change that. Also for the desktop is the same. So I can zoom in Figma using plus. Okay, so you can see now we have a closer look at these images. And then what we will be doing is that we'll create a little rectangle here. So come at the top here and create a rectangle. So I have created a rectangle here, and we will be using this rectangle to estimate the different sizes of the spacing of the pixels of the images, etc. But when I hover on top of this, we can't clearly see that image, and we can't clearly estimate the size of that image. So what you can do is to come at fill right here, click it, and you can make this box transparent by dragging this on the left. When I bring it to about 30, that is good enough, because we can see the rectangle where it is, and also we can easily estimate the size. So I can zoom in further and I can estimate the size of that logo by dragging this right here and then right there. We can easily estimate the size of this logo instead of just blindly guessing its size. So this Figma will give us a good experience and we will be able to come to a design that is closer to what is required. Now that we have familiarized ourselves with this design and the environment and different things that we'll be using or expecting, now let's go ahead and jump into our index.html file. So the first thing that I want us to do is to link a CSS file to this HTML file. So I'll come at the top here and click this new file and I'll add a main.css file. And then we will link this main.css file to our index.html. So okay, just after this one here we will say link rel will be style sheet. The type, so I need to close this. The type will be text stroke css, and then the href will be main.css, and then I'll close this one right here. You can also add another attribute here called media, and we set this one to screen. So we will start with the desktop design, and to be specific, let's start with this navbar together with the hero section. So let's write the HTML markup for this particular section. First of all, I will comment out this content that is at our body. So I'll select all of it and then I'll comment it out. Also, I'll remove this p tag at the footer, and at the very top I'll also remove these styles because we have already added a main.css file, which is an external style sheet. And then right here I can remove the first name here. We start with Fylo right there, landing page. And in the body tag I will start by adding the header tag, and inside the header tag we will have a nav with a class of nav. So I'll just add a class here of nav, and then we will have several a tags, and the first a tag will be calling our logo. So I will add an a tag with a class of brand logo. So a dot brand hyphen logo, enter, and in here we will add an image. So first of all, the href will just go to the home page, and in here we will add an image, which is the logo. So img, the source will be from images stroke logo.svg. So you can add an svg file as an image, and how you do that is this way, or you can just add it as inline by copying the svg code and pasting it right here. Okay, and then the alt I can say Fylo, whatever that means. And then after the logo we will add a ul element with a class of nav items. So ul dot nav hyphen items, enter, and then in here uh, we will include these nav items. They are 3 and we will use li and a tags. Okay, so I will add an li which will have a class of navlink, and then in here we can add an a tag, and the href won't really point to anywhere because this is just for practice purposes. And in here we will add features, and then we'll have another li with a class of navlink. So since this is repeating itself, what we can do is to just select this one, and in Visual Studio Code you can duplicate it using Alt Shift, and a bottom arrow will bring it at the top, at the bottom. So let's just change the a tag here, and to be specific, it's this text content. So we'll change this one to team with a caps right there, and this one to sign in. So that's it for the HTML for the nav. Let's continue and add the hero section. So after the header tag, I will add the main tag right here, and inside this main tag we will have several sections. The first section is the hero section, so I'll add a section with a class of hero, enter, and then the first thing that we have at our hero section is this image, and then we'll have a heading and paragraph, and then a CTA, call to action button right there. Let's start by adding the image. So img, enter. The source will be images stroke illustration intro, and then alt, you can provide an alt right there. I'll just leave it blank, and then we can have a h2 which will have a class of first hyphen title hyphen heading, and the content for the h2 is this line particular here. So I'll just copy it, actually I'll cut it, and I will paste it between the h2 tags, and then we will have a paragraph. So just below the h2 I will add a p tag, and the content for the p tag is this particular lines right here. I will cut them and include them inside the p tag. So you can see you are provided with all the content that you may need. At last we have a CTA, and I'll add it as an a tag, and then it won't really have a href. The class for the CTA will be CTA, and that particular href can point to the place that you want it to go. So right here I'll just cut this one and include get started right there. So get started, you can take a user to registration page or sign up page with this href which I just deleted. Maybe I can just include it again so that it won't be confusing. So you can point this one to a sign in page, a sign up page, or something like that. So that's it for the HTML markup of the hero section. Let's go and start styling this using CSS. So I'll jump to main.css file, and the first thing that I want us to do is to import Google Fonts to CSS file. So I can come to my style guide right here, and you can see the Google Fonts that we are supposed to use right here, Railway and Open Sans. So I'll go to Google, and I'll just search for Google Fonts. So open the first option right here, fonts.google.com, and we can search for those two fonts. The first one is open sans. For mine, it's just right here. I'll click it, and then I'll scroll right here to regular and add it to my selected font families. And then I'll come back at the top, go back to Google Fonts, and I'll search for the other one, which is, I think, Railway. This one right here. I'll click it, and I'll come to regular fonts, and it will also be added to my selected families. Then I'll go to embed here, and what I want to use is import. So I'll copy what is between the style tags, this link right there. I will copy, go back to my main.css file, and I'll paste it there. So now we will be able to use open sans and railway in our project. And then I'll add some global styles here. So I'll add a comment and say global styles. And the first thing I'll do is to select all elements, and then I'll select all after pseudo selectors. So after, and also the before pseudo selectors. And I will set the margin to 0, the padding to 0, and the box sizing I'll set it to inherit, and this will inherit from HTML. So I'll come down here and select the HTML. I'll add the font family, and here I'll use open sans. So this will be by default for all text in our project. So open sans and a fallback of sans serif. So if open sans is not available, then sans serif will be used. And I missed the spelling here. This is open sans. And then I'll set the font weight to be 400. So this is provided in the style guide, and then the font size is also provided in the style guide to be 14px. And then I'll set the box sizing to be border box. I'll set a scroll behavior of smooth, and then we will need the background image and the color for the text. So for all the colors, I want to use CSS variables. So I'll just come at the top here and select the root. So this is the most top element in a HTML page. So I'll set some CSS variables which we will use for the colors, and this will make our work easier because we won't keep coming back and forth to our style guide. So what we can do here is to set a variable called intro, and then hyphen email hyphen bg, and this will be the color for intro and email background. So when I come here and scroll at the top here, you can see here intro and email sign up background. So I'll just copy this color and paste it here. Okay, so we will do the same for the other colors. So we will have a main hyphen bg, and then when I come to style guide, this is the one. I'll copy and paste it here. So this is how we create a CSS variable. It must have these two hyphens at the beginning. Okay, I'm not just coming up with these. Okay, it exists in CSS. And then I'll create another variable, footer hyphen bg full colon, and we can get that from here. So I missed the H, and then we can have the testimonials -bg, and it's also provided right here. I'll copy it, come back here and paste it there. And then there are other colors that have been provided. There is cyan, so I'll come here and select it. So I'll copy and paste it there. There is blue. I'll come here, I'll copy this one and paste it there. And finally there is white. I'll come and select it here. So you can't clearly see the numbers here because of an extension that I'm using, but you get the point. So these are the variables that we'll be using for the colors, and I have realized that this is not supposed to be font variant but font weight, so I'll change this one to font weight. Okay, I hope everything else is okay. This is not box shadow, this is box sizing. So I'll open this page, the HTML page, with a live server to make sure that everything is fine, because I have realized I'm making a lot of errors. So I'll just open it with a live server. So we have these three elements. We can't see the logo because it's white, but it's there. We have the image, the heading, the paragraph, and the get started. So everything is fine for HTML. Let's continue with our CSS. And what we will do here is that we will set a background color for the whole page. So I'll say background, and now we can use the CSS variable, and this is how we use it: var, and then in brackets we give the name of that variable right here, and it's main bg. So when I go back to the HTML page, it didn't kick in, meaning that something is wrong. So I'll check it out. This is font size. I made a lot of errors here. Please forgive me for that. Box sizing, scroll behavior. So this should work. I don't know why I made a mess. And I have seen it. So this CSS file is not supposed to be inside the design. Okay, we are supposed to take it at the root together with the HTML. So are you sure you want to move? Okay, so let's see if everything works. Yeah, there we go. And now that our CSS is working, we will add the color for the text, and we'll do the same: val, and then hyphen, double hyphen, and we give the variable name, which is white. So now our text will be white, our background will have a dark background. Now look at that. So I'll come down here, select all our headings, the nav and the CTA, and give them the railway font family. So H2, we will have H3, and we will have a nav and also .cta. And then right here we will set the font hyphen family, railway, and then a fallback of sans serif. So sans serif, and then we will set font weight for this one to be heavier, so this will be 700. Okay, I'll come at the bottom here, select all UL and LI elements, and what I'll do is to remove the list style. So list style will be none. I'll come down here and I'll select the A tag. We set the color to val in brackets double hyphen white, and then we also remove the text decoration. So text hyphen decoration will be none. So when I check it out, there we go. And then the H2 will have a bigger font size. So when I come here, you can see this is the main heading, and when I scroll at the bottom, we have another one here. When I come here, I think is this part of it. This one looks much smaller, but for these two, they are big. So I'll just set a global styling for H2 alone and set the font size to be 40px. So it will be much bigger, and you can see how big it is now. And then let's now go ahead and start styling our nav. Those were some global stylings. So for the nav, I'll come here and give a comment nav styles, and we want to select the .nav class. So .nav, we give it a width, and the width will be 100%. So when you come to our index.html file and look at the nav, you can see that the nav have two main children, and the first child is the A element, the second child is the UL element, right? So the reason that we divided them this way is so that we can easily separate the logo here and our links on the other side. So we can use Flexbox to style our nav, and in our CSS file, I'll just come and say display to be flex, and then we will align the items at the center. So align items to be center, and justify content. So with the justify content, when I go to my HTML right now, you can see the logo now and these links are side by side. But what we want to do is to take these all the way to the other end. And what we can do is to use a justify content of space between. Okay, so this will create a good spacing between the logo and our items here. We will add some padding top and bottom, and also left right. And how we will do that is by using our estimation here. So when I come right here and estimate this one, the padding top is around 72 or 73px, and then the padding for left and right is around something to do with 80. Just look at the width here, and also for this one is around 80. So that is the use of Figma in this project. So right here I'll add a padding, and as we have seen, top and bottom can be 73px, and then left right can be 80px. And then at the bottom here we can add the background for the nav. So background will be val And remember, we had this variable intro email bg. So when I come to my site, you can see the whole of this section will be for the nav. Now let's style these links right here so that they can be side by side to each other. Select the nav items, nav-items. We add a display of flex, and then we align the items to center. And now when we look at it, you can see what we have. They are now side by side, but we need to add some spacing between these items. So what we can do is to add some padding right, and we will be adding the padding right for this particular item and this particular item, but not this one. And you can estimate the padding right again by using our box here. So when I come at the top and place this box, I'll select it and press it between these two elements. You can easily approximate the padding. So it will be around 50 something, 56 are there. So the width is 56 here. And how we can make sure that we add padding to the first two items and not the last item is by using this selector. First of all, we will use the .nav items class right here, and then we use not selector, pseudo selector, and in here we will use a last child pseudo selector. So this means that select all the nav items children, but do not select the last child. Okay, and then what we will do is to add a padding right of 56px. Now when we go to the web page here, you can see that we have some good spacing between these two, and the padding wasn't added for this particular child right there. So you can see that our nav is already cool. We don't need to resize the size of this logo because it's already at its default. And when I come to this one here, navigate to our logo and try to estimate the size, you can see the size is around 178 by 52, right? Now when I go back here and go to images and look for our logo, here you can see the size of this SVG is 176 by 52, and what we have here is 178 by 52. So this is the same size, so we don't need to change the size for the desktop version. We'll probably do that for the mobile version. Let's go back to the main.css, and because we are done with our nav, we can now go forward and add a comment here for the hero section. And then I'll select the class.hero, and this is the class that we gave this particular section. And the first thing that I'll do is to say display of flex, and what we want to do is to center our elements. So if I zoom out here, zoom out again, you can see the content is at the center, and the flex direction is column. So display of flex, by default the flex direction is in a row. So what we can do is to change the flex direction here to column, and then we can center the elements by saying align items to center, justify content to center, and let's see what we have. And this is what we have. It's actually at the center. So I can give this section a height and a width. So right here I'll say width to be 100%. The mean height, I want this one to be 100 VH, and this is the viewport height. Now we can add some background, and when I look at this hero section, you can see that we have the same background as the nav here, and also we have a curvy image right here. Can you see it? We have a curvy image at the very bottom. So we need to change the background. We set the color, and also we add this image. So right here I will say background to be val, and we will use the same background as the nav, which was intro email bg, and then after that we will add a URL, and the curvy image is at images stroke bg curvy desktop.svg, and then the location of this image will be at the bottom, and no repeat. So we don't want that image to keep repeating itself, and we can see what we have. And you can see that that curvy image was added, and the background is now similar as our nav here. Now we need to make this background image to be smaller. How we can do that is to set the height and the width. So I'll say background size, we give it a width of 100%, and the height you can estimate it using Figma. I don't know if it will be perfect. I don't think it will be, but what I did is that I gave it a height of around 270 px, but for this one the height is around 520. But because we don't have the sketch files, we're gonna use our best judgment ever, and the one that I came up with was 270 px. I'll select the image hero, and then img, the width, and again you can use Figma here to estimate how big this image is. I'll zoom in a little bit. Okay, I'll take this at the top. Oops. Now we need to cover even this section. So when I scroll back here, is a width of around 730. So, and a height of around 533. So you can come back here and give the width of 739 and a height of 533. So let's see how it looks, and it's much smaller, I guess. And then we can now style our heading here, dot hero h2, and this one I gave it a width of 742 px and a margin of 46 px. Again, you can estimate this using Figma, and when I look at it, you can see how it is. We need to add a text align of center, and I'll do that right here. So text hyphen align of center and see if it looks much better. And there it is. Let's style the p tag. So I'll come right here, select the p tag dot hero p, and I gave this one a width of 742 px. Again, you can do this using Figma, and the font size I estimated again using Figma, and it was around 22 px. So just show you everything, you can estimate it using Figma. So right here you can come at the font, and the p, it's around 20 something, 22, 23. You can estimate the font size that way, and then we can add a padding here of 0 and 30 px. So 0 is top and bottom, 30 px is left and right. And when I check the section, you can see the paragraph looks much better. Now let's style our CTA button right here. So I'll select the CTA dot CTA, and we will add the color. It's var white, of which I guess it is, so I don't need to change the color. And then we have the width of the CTA. So you can come to Figma and estimate how long this width is. So taking this to this position, and this one I'll extend it that way to this position, and it's around 280 for the width. And also you can check for the padding top and bottom, and when I come here and I check the padding, it's around 20. So that's how you do it. The width is 280 px. The padding for top and bottom will be around 20 px. Left and right will be 0. We can also add a border radius. So border hyphen radius. So this I used my best judgment, and then we can add some margin top and bottom of 30 px, left and right of 0. So we can check the button and we don't see any difference, right? And that is because we don't have some background color. So we can add a background, which is a linear gradient background, and this is a linear gradient, and it will be to right. The first color will be var in brackets double hyphen cyan, and you can see the power of CSS variable in action here. And then the second color will be var in brackets double hyphen blue. So let's see what we have. And there we go. This is very cool. For the CTA, I'll also add a border of none, because we will be having another CTA at the very bottom. So when I come to Figma and scroll at the very bottom, we have another CTA here, and we will be using a submit button here, which will have a border. So I can just remove it right here. Okay, and that's it for our hero section. Now we can go forward and start laying down the HTML structure of our features section, which is right here. And in this section we will use a different layout skills, which is CSS Grid. So far we have been using Flexbox. Open the index.html file, and just after the hero section we will add another section with a class of features. And then we will have several divs, each for a particular feature. So I'll spell this one correctly. So here I'll add a div with a class of feature. So there is no s. And then inside this div, the first thing that we will have is an image. So we have an image, a title, and a paragraph for each of these features. So right here I can add an img. The source is images stroke icon access anywhere. So icon access anywhere, and you can add an alt. I'll just leave it blank for my case here. And then here after that we will have a h3, and this h3 will have a class of second hyphen title hyphen heading. So in case we want to style it differently from the h2, and then inside here we will include this heading access your files anywhere. I'll cut it and paste it in there, and then after that we will have a paragraph, and we'll just paste this content. I will cut it and paste it inside the paragraph. Okay, and that's it for that div. So all we need to do is to create 3 more divs just like this one. So I'll paste that div 3 more times, and now we can customize each of these divs. Let's start with this one, and the icon will change here. So this one will be stroke images stroke something to do with security, icon hyphen security, and then the heading I'll come at the very bottom, cut this one, and then come back at the top and paste it here. We can also change the paragraph real quick. Just copy this one, cut it, and I'll come back and paste it here. Nope, this one. Now let's go to the other one, real time, and the icon is something to do with collaboration. So inside here I remove this svg, and I'll say icon hyphen collaboration, and then this is the heading for that. I'll copy that one and paste it inside the h3, and actually I was supposed to cut it and remove these other features there, and I'll copy the paragraph. I'll cut the paragraph and paste it here. Let's go to the last one, something to do with storage, any type of file. So I'll come and say icon hyphen any file, and I will copy this one here. I'll cut that one and paste it here, and the heading will be store any type of file, and I'll paste it there. So that's it for the HTML markup for the features. Now let's go ahead and style that section. And as I said before, we'll be using CSS Grid. So the first thing that I'll do is to add a comment features. So let's select the features class. So dot features, and then we can give it a width, and I'll add a display, and this time the display will be grid. Now with grid system we have columns and rows, and our layout here have two columns. Okay, and how we add columns in grid is by using this line of code: grid hyphen template columns, and then to define the number of columns that you want, you just press the length of each column or the size. So 1 fr means one fraction of the space that is available, and this will create one column. When I add another 1 fr, this will create two columns. So when I go back to my web page here, you can see that we have two columns, and when I add another 1 fr, we will have three columns. And this is how the grid system works. So you can see here we have three columns, but what we want is two columns. And to add rows, you also use a similar property here, grid template rows, and you add them in the similar manner. But you can see this is a lot of repetition that is here. So what you can do, there is a function called repeat, and then you state the number of times that it should repeat. So we want two columns, so we repeat twice, and what we are repeating here is one fraction. And this one can be other units, so it can be percentage, it can be pixels, it can be uh, any other units that you know. So right here we can say something like 20px, and that will create columns of 20px, but you can see how they are crowding to each other. So what we want is that we want these columns to occupy the space that is available and share that space equally, and we are doing that by using one fraction for each of those columns. And yeah, now we have the layout set. All we need to do is to add a few more styling, and it will look much better. So there is something that we call gap in a grid system, and the first value here will define the column gap. So when I say 94px and come to my file, to my page here, you can see now we have a gap between these two columns, and we also have the row gap, which is the second value here. So I can say 150px, and this will create the row gap, and this is a shorthand. If you want to add only one, you can say like column gap or row gap. But if you want to do a shorthand, you can just say gap, and then the first value will be the column gap and the second value will be the row gap. So yeah, that's it. And how I determine these values is using Figma. So when you come to Figma, you can estimate the values for the gap between this one. So this will be just an estimate, not a perfect value. So this is how we do it. You can see the gap between here is about 147, and you can do the same for the row. Anyway, now you know about the row gap and the column gap. Let's add some margin for the top and bottom. Margin will be 130px, top and bottom, and left right will be 0. And then we can say a padding of 0 top and bottom, because we already added some margin for the top and bottom, and then we can do a left and right of 80 px, and let's see how that one looks. And you can see now this looks much better, right? Now all we need to do is to center our content here, and how we can do that is to come right here, select feature for each of those features, and I am not good at spelling this one, and then we can add a text hyphen align of center. Oops, this thing makes me do a lot of mistakes. Text align of center, and then when I come back, you can see this looks much better like what we have, and which is really awesome. All we need to do is to add some spacing between this icon and the heading, also between the heading and the paragraph. And the easiest way to do that is to target the H3. So right here we can say that feature, and then we select the H3. We just add some margin top and bottom, which the margin top will be 25 px, and because you don't need the margin for the left and right, we'll add a 0, and then the margin for the bottom will be 12 px and a 0 for the left. So that's it. That's how we can do it. So look at that section. It already looks cool. And you can see the lines of CSS that we used. They are just a few lines of CSS, and our feature section is complete. Now next, what we'll do is to go to the next section, and the other section that we will handle is this one right here. And this section, we'll just call it more description. So let's add the HTML for this section. So after crossing the features section, I will add a new section with a class of extra description, extra hyphen description, enter, and then inside these ones we will have two main distinct sections. The first one will hold the image, the other one will hold our content. So we can add a div with a class of img hyphen box, and in here we will add an image, and the src will be images stroke illustration, stay productive, and then okay, we can go to the next section for this particular extra description section, and this will have a class of text box, which is a div, and in here we will add a h2, and what is inside the h2 is this line right here. I'll just cut it and paste it inside there, and then after that we will have a paragraph, and what is inside the paragraph is this line right here. I'll cut it and paste it in there, and we have two paragraphs, so I'll add another paragraph, and what is inside that is this line right here. I will cut it and paste it there. Oops, paste. And then after that we will have a link, and the link have an icon in it. So when I come to Figma, you can see a retro icon there and some text for the link. So I will add the a tag just after this p tag, and the href won't really point to anywhere, so I'll paste it as hash, and we'll add a class for this one to be desk hyphen link, and inside this link we'll add a span for the text span. And what is inside the span is this. See how Fylo works. I'll cut it and paste it here. And after the span, we'll also have an image, img, enter. And the source for the image is images stroke icon arrow. So if you can see icon arrow, select it, and I'll just leave the alt. You can add it if you want. So that's it for the link. And when I come here, we can preview what we have. So the icon was added, the link, and everything else. Let's go ahead and start it with CSS. The previous section we used some grid. In this one, let's use CSS Flexbox. So here I'll add a comment, more description. I will select the extra description class. So extra hyphen description. Now here we will add a display of flex, and we can see if that is taking effect. And yeah, so you can see the image is here, the other content is here. So what we can do here is to align items at the center. So align items center, and that will align the items vertically at the center. So you can see now these have dropped down here. Let's add a padding for left and right, and top will be 0, left and right will be 100 px. So when I look at this one, you can see the image is so big, but we have some distance here. We can make this image to be much smaller. I'll select the dot img hyphen box class, and then select the image. I'll give it a height of 460 px, the width auto, and then we can add some margin right. So you can see there is a spacing between the image and this paragraph. So we can add some margin right on the image so that there is that spacing right there. So I'll come back here and add some margin hyphen right of about 45 px. And now when I go back here, scroll down, you can see this section have start coming along. I will select the text box, and apart from the last child here, I'll add some margin bottom of 25 px. So the heading will have some margin bottom of 25 px, the first paragraph and the second paragraph, but not this last link. So how to do that? We had done a similar thing, so I'll just select the text box, and then we will use the not pseudo selector, and in here we'll select the last child. So this means not last child, so not the link, and then we'll just add the margin. So margin hyphen bottom, and what we will have here is 25 px. And now when I come back, this section looks more like what we want. So we gave the link a class of desk link. So dot desk hyphen link, and then we do something in here. First of all, we will change the color, and we already created a variable for our colors. So var double hyphen, and what we want is cyan, and then we'll underline our link using border bottom, and we'll say 1px solid. Okay, I need a space, solid, and we use our color. Now when I come back here, it's underlined and it have changed its color, which is perfect. Now let's position this retro icon properly. All we need to do is to select that icon using desk link img, and then we'll say vertical align to be middle, and then when I come back, it's at the middle, so it's now properly aligned with our text. We can add some margin left if we want, so margin hyphen left, and this will be about 3px, and when we look at it, it looks cool. The next section will be the testimonials section, and now here there is a challenge for these quotes. Just think how we can do it. Just take a moment and think about it. In this section, we will use some more CSS grid, and we will mix it with Flexbox, and we'll have some fun with it. So open your index.html file, and after this section, we will add the testimonial section. So right here, I'll add a section tag which has a class name of testimonials, and then we will create a div for each of those testimonials. There are 3 testimonials, so right here I'll add a div with a class of testimonial, so this is singular, and then each testimonial starts with a paragraph, and inside the paragraph we have this text right here. So I'll cut that and paste it inside these paragraphs. After the paragraph, I'll create a retro div for the profile. So you can see at the bottom here we have some profile info, the photo, the name, and some ranking there. So right here, I'll add a div with a class name of profile, and then inside this div we will have an image, and the source of the first testimonial is images stroke profile 1.jpg, and then I will add another small div right here which will have h3, and this h3 holds the name of that particular client. So I'll cut that and paste it in here, and then after the h3 we will have a paragraph here. Inside the paragraph we will have these details, so I'll cut that and paste it inside the paragraph. So when you look at this particular testimonial, most of the details are similar, like the paragraph and the p tag here. So obviously this is a dummy testimonial, and I'll just copy it, the whole of this. I'll select the whole of this and duplicate it 2 more times. So I'll use Alt Shift and the bottom arrow, and another time. So the thing that will be changing is only the name. So for this one, the name will be Bruce something. So I'll cut that, come at the top for the second one, and I'll change the name right there, and the photo will also be changing to profile 2, and then here the photo will be changing to profile 3. Now let's change the name of the last testimonial, this one. I'll cut that and delete the whole of this one. Okay, now I'll come back and paste the name here. So let's see what we have, and I'll refresh. So these are the 3 testimonials. So it's time to make this look much better with CSS. Let's jump right into main.css file, and then I'll add a comment here, testimonials. So when we look at this section, we can start by styling the card for each individual. I'll start by selecting the testimonials section, and we will say display to be grid, and then we will use grid template columns, and we use our repeat function that we used before, and we have 3 columns, and each we want it to occupy the same space. So I'll add 1 fraction. So each column will have 1 fraction, and there will be 3 columns. So when I come back, and you can see now the testimonial section how it looks. Now they are side by side, and each of them occupy the same spacing. Let's add a gap right here of 40 px, and you can estimate the gap using Figma, and then I'll add a padding of 140 px. So let's see what we have. Now we have some spacing on the sides and some gap between these testimonials. Let's go ahead and select each testimonial using the class.testimonial. We will add the background color for each testimonial. So background, and use our variable. So val double hyphen, and the name of the variable is testimonials hyphen bg, and then we will add some padding. Top and bottom will be about 45 px, left and right will be about 40 px. So we'll also add a small border radius of about 5 px. So our testimonials looks this way. We still need to style our images here and the info of each client, but before we do that, when you look at the first testimonial here, we have these quotes, and I told you to just think about it. How can we add this quote this way? And let's add this quote to start with. How we can do that is to make this testimonial card to be positioned relatively. So this will be position relative, and then what we can do is to use the before pseudo selector, okay, so that we can add some content before the first card. Okay, so just after this one, I'll say dot testimonial, and we'll select the first child. So first child, and use the before pseudo selector. So with the before pseudo selector, we can add extra content using the content property. So here I can say content, and what we will do is to add an image. Just say URL, and inside these brackets we'll give the path for the image, which is images stroke bg quotes. Now when I come back, you can see these quotes were added. Now the good thing with this, we can style it differently from the rest of the information in this card. So the first thing we can do, this was positioned relative, so what we need to do here is to add a position of absolute. So absolute, so this will be absolute to this particular card, and we used first child so that the image was added only on that first testimonial. And the next thing that we'll do is to position these properly. Now we added a position of absolute, and we need a more styling, so we can add a top, and the top will be negative so that it goes upward. Top to be negative, that 5 px, and when we look at that, you can see now it's straightly above this one. Okay, so that's cool. We also want to add a left of negative about 15 px, and when we look at that, you can see now it was pushed on the other side. But we don't need this quote to be on top of this card, we want it to be behind. So what we can use here is a z index, and we will use a z index of -1. When you look at it now, that quote is behind this card, which is really cool. Now that we are done with that, we can go ahead and add more styling on the inside. The first thing we can do is to select this paragraph and add some distance between the paragraph and the client info. So right here, I'll come and use the testimonial class, and then select the P, and we add a margin, a hyphen bottom of about 25 px. So now we have some distance between the paragraph and our client's info. Let's style the client's info. Right here, I'll first select the profile class, and then we'll just add a display of flex. Now the image and the client's info will be side by side. Here's the image, and the details have moved to the side. Now let's style that image because it's big than what we want. So I'll say profile img, and then we will add a width of about 27 px. So you can estimate this using Figma again, and the height of about 27 px. Let's make it a circular. What we'll do is just to add a border radius of 50%, and that will make the image to be circular. So when I come back, you can see now the image is much smaller and it's circular, but we need a spacing between this image and these details. So what we can do is to add a margin right of about this is right of about 5 px, and that will do it. So when I come back, there is a straight spacing between these two. Let's go ahead and style this h3. We add a class name here. This is not supposed to be class of div, but class of here profile hyphen description, and we can use this class to select different elements inside there. So I'll scroll up so that I create some more spacing here, and we can say profile hyphen description, and we select the h3, and all we want to do is to change the font size. So this will be font size of 10 px, and we'll also select the paragraph. So dot profile description again, and we select the p tag, and what we'll do is also change the font size, and this one will be about 8 px. Now when we go back, So only this one changed, and it's because we added the class name only on this. We need to do the same for these ones. So I'll copy this class name and add it to the others. So this one will be profile description and this one will be profile description. So when we go back, now everything looks cool. And that's it for the testimonial section. You can see that we have managed to achieve this design, and so far so good. We can continue to the other section. So what remains is the footer and this sign up form right here, and we are going to do both of them at once. And I want you to think how we can add this sign up form between this section and this section. Let's go ahead and add the HTML markup for these two sections. So I'll jump into index.html file again, and just after this one we will add a section with a class name of sign up. So sign hyphen up, enter, and this is supposed to be section tag. The first thing that we have on this form is a heading. We will have a paragraph, and then we'll have some input fields. So this is the first input field of type email, and the other one is of type submit. So right here, let's start by adding a h2, and what we have there is this one, get early access today. I'll cut it and add it there. The next thing that we have is a paragraph. I'll add the paragraph, cut and add. After this one we will have a form, and we don't really have any action. I'll leave it at blank, and then we will have an input field, and the type is email, and then we'll have a placeholder for this input field. So placeholder, and it will be email at example.com, and then we'll have another input field. So input, and this will have a type of submit. We will give it a class name, so a class of CTA, and the value of this submit button will be get started for free. So I'll just select that and cut it, add it inside the value. I'll be adding the footer just after the main tag. So after this one I'll add the footer tag, and then inside here we will have several sections. So there is this section, this one, this one, this one, and this one. So what we will do here is to create a div for each of these sections, and we'll be introducing a new concept called grid template areas, which will come in handy when styling this footer. So I'll add a div for the logo, and I'll give it a class name of footer logo. So dot footer hyphen logo, and then we can just add the img in here. The source will be images stroke logo. I'll add another div here with a class name of footer location, and the first thing that we have for the location is an icon. So it is this section right here, an icon and a paragraph. So the icon will be adding it using img. The source will be images stroke icon location hyphen location, and then we'll have a span for the text, or you can use a p tag. In this case I'll use a span, and inside the span we have this content. I'll cut it and paste it inside there. Let's add another subsection here called footer contact. So the class name is footer hyphen contact, and I'll add a paragraph for each of the contact info. Each contact have an icon and some details, an icon and some details. So we will start with the icon. So img, the source of the first one is images stroke icon font, and then after the image we will add a span tag, and the span tag will have our contact here. I'll cut this and paste it in there. We will have the same design for the email, so I will duplicate this one and change the icon to email and change the content to this email. So there we go. Let's add another subsection here, and I'll call it dot footer hyphen links, and we'll have links here which won't really point to anything. I'll duplicate this link several times, and about 5. Let me see, 1 2 3 4 4. So that is the first one, the second, the third, the fourth, and the first one here will be about us. This one will be jobs, press, is it press? Yeah, and blog. We will have another section, footer hyphen more links, and what we will have here is also an a tag which won't really point to anything, and these one are 3 of them, these ones right here. So I'll duplicate 2 more times, and the first one here is contact us, the second terms, and I added it on the wrong location, terms, privacy, and the last subsection of the footer will be social icons. So dot social hyphen icons, and we are not provided with the SVG of the social icons, so this is where we will use font awesome icons. So what you need to do is to go to Google. I'll open a new tab here, search for font awesome icons. So font awesome icons, and we are going to get the latest version, and then at the bottom here you can click start for free. If you don't have an account, you may need to create one, and you may also need to create a kit. So just enter the name of the project and create the kit. But because I have created, all you need to do is to go to this profile button at the top there, and then go to kits, and you will see the kits that you have here. Click on a particular kit, and you'll see instructions of using that kit. I'll just copy the kit code here, and we'll add this code at the head section of our file. So I'll go back to HTML, scroll at the very top, and then at the head section we can add that link. So I'll add it there. Now we can use Font Awesome icons in our project, and the first icon will have a class name of fab and another class name of far-facebook. The other two icons will have a similar code, so all I'll do is to duplicate this 2 more times, and what I'll change is the name here from Facebook to Twitter, and from Facebook here to Instagram. And these are Font Awesome class names. So let's see if they were added, and you can see them at the very bottom here. So that's cool. Let's go to CSS and style these two sections. I'll jump into CSS and then I'll add a comment. This is sign up. So I'll select the .signup class, and we can use Flexbox in this one. So display flex, and then we will use a flex direction of column. So here I'll say flex hyphen direction to be column, and then align items center and justify content center, and then we can add some background for the email. So background, we use our variable here which was intro email bg, and now when I check at it, this looks much better. Let's add the padding. Here it will be 50 px, that is for the top. For the left it will be 74 px, for the bottom it will be 40 px, and for the right 74 px as the left one. We can add a straight border radius for this section. So border radius of about 5 px. Now we need to figure out how we can make this one to be between this section and the footer. So what we can do, and we want to differentiate between the footer and this section, is first select the footer and give it a different color. So I will add a comment here for the footer, and then we select the footer element and add a background of var, and the variable here is footer bg. So let's see if there is a difference. Yeah, you can see this section is more dark than this one, and the colors aren't the same. So that will really help us to know whether we have achieved our goal. Let's come back here, and what we can do is to use relative and absolute position. And when we look at our HTML file, this sign up section is inside a main tag. So what we can do is to make this main tag to have a position of relative and this section to have a position of absolute, and then we can position it properly like we did with our quote for the testimonials. So right here, what we will do is to go at the top, and I'll do this at the global styling, and I'll select the main element and give it a position of relative. Okay, I can also give it a padding bottom, a padding hyphen bottom of about 200 px. Now you can see this is inside the main section, but we want it to be between these two sections. So let's scroll back at the bottom, and right here we can add a position, and this time this will be absolute. Okay, now we can bring this at the center using this styling. We'll give it a left of 50%, and then we will translate x negative 50%. So let's see what we have, and you can see now it's at the center. And then we will add a bottom of negative 155 px. And how I determine this is using Figma. So when I open Figma here, you can estimate, I'll zoom in, you can estimate this distance. So this one right here, so when I come here, it's around 150 something px. Let's see what we have, and you can see now this is really coming along. So that's not enough, we still need to style what is inside here. Let's do that. Let's start with the heading dot signup h2, and we'll give it a margin bottom of 30 px, and then we can select the p tag. So signup p, and I'll give it a margin bottom of that 6 px, and we can use a text align of center. And I'll scroll up, I need more spacing here. Now we can go ahead and start styling our form here. Together with this button, we can change the color. So I'll come back and select the input field with the type of email. How we can do that is to say input and then square brackets, type is equals email, and we can style that. First of all, I'll give it a width of 482 px, a height of 50 px, a padding, this will be top and bottom 20 px, left and right 47 px. So what that will do is give our email some spacing. So when I come back to this one, you can see what we have, and the email is in there. So we have a padding top and bottom. Okay, we can add some border radius, and we remove this outline together with the border. So right here we can say outline is none, and the border radius, okay, the border is none, border hyphen radius is 50 px, and we'll be pressing this email side by side with the button. So when I come here and scroll this way, you can see the input field and the button are side by side. So what I can do is to add some margin right for this one, margin right of 20 px, and then at the top here we can select the whole form and give it a display, and we align the content at the center. So align content to be center. Let's see what we have. So this is what we have at the moment. Let's select this button here, input square brackets type is equals to submit, and what we will do here is just add a color of var in brackets double hyphen white. So when I select this one, you can see that it have some margin top and bottom, and we need to remove that. So what I can do is right here where we are selecting this one, I'll add a margin of 0, and then the semicolon there, the semicolon there. So when I come back, this is cool. We have achieved the positioning of this card to be at the middle of these ones, and we can make this to be pale by adding an opacity here. So what we can do here is to select the placeholder, and then we add an opacity of about 0.4. So I'll remove that and indent that properly. When I come back, these will look pale than the rest of the text. So yeah, that's it for that section. The next thing that we are going to do is to style the footer, and we'll be introducing a new concept, as I said before, called grid template areas in the footer. What I'll do is to come just at the bottom here and start adding more styling to the footer. To start with, I'll add a padding. So top it will be 200 px, right it will be 80 px, bottom 80 px, left it will be 100 px. So after this, I will add a display of grid, and then we can create columns here. So grid template columns, the first column will have 4 fr, the second 3 fr, the third I'll give it 1 fr, the other one fr, and the last one 2 fr. So this one will occupy more space than the others. When I come back to my browser here, you can see what we have. And right here, I'll say a grid hyphen template rows, and I'll set this to auto. And then we can add a column gap for each of those sections. So column gap of about 70 px. So let's see what we have. Much better. Now what I want to do is to use what we call grid template areas, and this is a very cool property which will help us to arrange our content for the footer. So right here I'll say grid hyphen template areas, and you can give names to different areas of our footer. What we do for the first row, we will have some quotes, and we are planning to have at least 2 rows. So when I zoom out, you can see this logo is on its own, so it will occupy a whole row by itself, but it will only occupy the first column, and the rest of the columns for that row, they will be empty. And then for the second row, each column will have some content. Right here, the top row, we first have a logo, so I'll give the first little section the name logo, and the other sections will have empty space. So to add an empty space, we use a period. So add a period, the first period, the second period for the third column, another period, and another period. How many are these? 1, 2, 3, 4, and yeah. So what will happen, logo will occupy this first column, and then the others will be empty for the first row. Okay, and then the second row will have all the content. So the first one will be allocation, the second one will be contact, and these are names that I am giving to my grid template areas. So this one will be contact, the other one links, the other one will be more hyphen links, and then the other one will be social hyphen icons. So this is our grid system here. We have 2 rows. The first row only have a logo and the other spacing is empty. The second row has all the content, but we are giving it different content depending on those small locations of the grid. What I'll do here is to select the logo. So footer hyphen logo, this is the class that we gave it, and we give it a grid hyphen area of logo. Okay, so this is how we use it. So footer logo will occupy this area and leave the rest alone. Let's continue studying and we'll see if everything will come along. And I'll also give the logo a margin of bottom to be 35 px, and then I'll select the other section, which is dot footer hyphen location. We'll give it a grid hyphen area, and this time it will be a location. So when I come back here, you can see the location have shifted. Now it's below the logo, like we have in our grid template areas here, logo and then location at the bottom. So that's nice. So we can style that location further, and what I want us to do is to give it a display of grid. So display, and we give it a grid template columns. The first one, which is an icon, will occupy small spacing, and then the other one will occupy more space. And we placed this paragraph, we placed it inside a span tag, and what we want is to just create some spacing between this icon and the paragraph. So let's select that text content. We'll use footer location, select the span tag, and all we will do is to add some padding left of about that 5px. Now when we look at it, we have good spacing between the icon and this text content. That's cool. Let's go ahead and select the footer hyphen contact. So dot footer hyphen contact, and what we'll do is to assign it a grid hyphen area of contact. And when I come back, you can now see the contact is at the same row with this content, and all we need to do now is to give this some spacing. So we'll select dot footer contact, select the p tag. We paste those contact details each inside a p tag, and we give each of them a margin bottom of 26 px, and then we select the icons. So dot footer contact, we select img, and all we will do is to add some margin right of 24 px. Now when I come back, you can see the contact looks much better. Let's style the other small sections. So I'll select the footer links. So here dot footer hyphen links, we assign a grid area. So grid hyphen area, and the grid area for the links, we gave it a name of links. So at the bottom here, we will say links, and then we can display grid using a grid inside a grid, and all we want is to give this a grid template column of 1, so that everything is in one column. So grid template columns, and I'll assign it 1 fr. Here select the class dot footer links, and select the a tag. We give it a margin bottom of 24 px, and we can go on and select footer more links. So dot footer links, but we have a more here, hyphen more, and we assign it an area, grid area of more hyphen links. So when I come back, you can see now this is positioned correctly, and what we can do is to do the same with this one. I'll say display, and then we give it a grid template columns of 1 fr, and we select the links like we did with this one. I'll just duplicate this, and to move it, I'll place alt and the bottom arrow, and then right here we'll change the class name hyphen more, and that will give them a margin bottom. When I come back, we have some margin bottom for each one of those. And this one, I think it's a little bit messed up, don't know why. So this is supposed to be 24 px, this one to be 24 px. Let's see, yeah, much better. Let's select the social icons dot social hyphen icons, and we will give it a grid hyphen area of social hyphen icons. We'll add a display of grid, and then at the bottom here I'll add a grid template columns, and each one of them I'll give it 1 fr, 1 fr, 1 fr, and then I'll increase the size of these icons using social icons. I select the I, give it the font hyphen size of 30 px. Let's see what we have. So when I come back, now these one are much big. So there is too much spacing here for the footer, and what we can do is to go to index.html page. So when I come to index.html page and scroll at the bottom, you can see that we duplicated the footer, which is creating that extra space. And I'll also remove this extra content here because we are already done with it. So now when I come back, you can see now the footer have a good spacing all around, and I am happy with this desktop version. We can go ahead and start making this to be mobile responsive. And to be specific to iPhone X, so this is the screen that the design was specifically made of 1440 px of width. So you can see it looks good on the screen, but what I want to do is to design for iPhone X, which have a width of 375 px. So on mobile, this is the design that is provided right here. So you can use this design to estimate the size of different components, okay? And how we create a responsive design in CSS is by using at media queries. So right here, I'll add a comment and I'll say mobile of width 375 px, and then we define a media query. So at media, and then we set a max hyphen width of 375 px, and the styling in here will be applied on mobile, which have a max width of 375. When we exit this width, the styling which are inside here will be ignored. So we can start by setting the HTML font size. So right here it's a font hyphen size of 10 px, and when I come back here, you realize that the font size for these elements is much smaller on mobile. So we can add more styling now, and we can start with the H2 here. So right here you can say H2, we set the font size, and this will be 25 px. So when I come back here to the design, you can see the font size for the H2 is much smaller too. Let's go ahead and start with this nav so that it properly fits this width. So I'll come here and say .nav, and we can add comments for different sections. So this can be global styling, and we add a comment for the nav here on mobile, and then we'll add a padding. Top and bottom will be 24 px, and then left right will be 20 px. We can change the padding right for the nav items. So .nav items, and we use the not selector, and inside this we use the last child selector. So this won't select the last child. We have done this before, and we'll change the padding right to be 23 px. So we can select the logo. So the logo here is too big, we can make it smaller, and you can estimate the size of the logo again using Figma. So you can see the size of the logo here is small and this one is big. So let's select the logo, brand hyphen logo img, and these have a period, and what we will do is to change the width to be 82 px and the height to be 24 px. So when we check back our site, you can see now the nav is fitting well. Now there is one thing I want to show you. So you can see that it's hard to know which components that you want to change and the sizes. So one thing that I did is you can split the screen here, and this main.css file will open on the side, and then I can cross this side, and now you can scroll this at the top without affecting this one. And when I come here, you can scroll through and see the different class names that you need to change without having to scroll up and down on one screen. Okay, so just after this we can add a comment hero section, and this is in mobile, and you can see that we are editing the same file, which is really cool. You can also minimize this if you want extra spacing on this one. So right here we will start changing the styling for the hero section. And when I look at this one, I don't need to change anything in this. What I need to change is the image size for the hero section. So right here I can say dot hero img, and then we set the width to be 302 px. Again, use Figma to estimate this, and the height you can use 225 px, and this image will now be much smaller on mobile. So we can preview that, and you can see now the image is fully visible on mobile. Okay, let's go ahead and style the headings and also the p tag. So you can see this is acting as a very good guide for that. So right here I'll select the heading dot hero h2, and what we will change is the width, and the width we want it to be 302 px, and then the margin for the heading will be about 23 px. Let's select the paragraph, so dot hero p tag, and we change the width to 292 px, and then the font size to be 12 px. We change the padding, and this will be the padding left and right, so top and bottom will be 0, left and right will be 23 px. Let's select our CTA here. So right here I can say .cta, and we can set the width to be 242 px, the padding to be 18 px, top and bottom, and then left right to be 0. So that's it for our hero section. So we can go ahead and start styling the features section. So I'll add a comment here, features, and we can select dot features, and then we want to do several stuff here. So when I preview this one, you can see the hero page looks good on mobile, and for this features section what we can do is to change the grid template columns to one column. So grid template columns, and we'll set this one to one column of 1fr. Now when I come back, we will have one column here, but there is more to do here. We can change the gap. So right here it says gap to be 87 px and 0 px, and then we can change the padding to be 0 px and 38 px, and finally we can change the margin to be 100 px for top and then 0 px left right, and we can preview that section. So you can see this now is good on mobile, and that's all we need to do for that section. So we can come to this other section for more description, where we have an image and some details on the side. So what we can do is add a comment. I'll say more description, and down here I'll add several styling. First, we can select the extra description class name, and what we can do is to change the flex direction to column. So flex hyphen direction will be column, so that it's now aligned vertically. And then we can change the padding to be 0 and 25 px left right, and this is padding. We can select the image because it's too big on mobile, so at the bottom here we can say .img hyphen box, and I'll select img tag. In here we will set the height, which I estimated using Figma, to be 215 px, and the margin to be 0 px, 0 px, and then 52 px for bottom and 0 px for the left. Now when I come back and scroll to this section, you can see it looks good on mobile. Let's move on to testimonials, where we used some grid. So right here I'll just add another comment, testimonials, and then below this one we will change the number of columns like we did on features. So right here it's a grid template columns to be one fraction, and I didn't select the testimonials class, so I wrap this one inside the curly brackets, and then dot testimonials, and I should indent that properly. So we will also add a gap of 24 px, and we can also change the padding to be 150 px and 22 px. So we can select our quote here and change the left. So when I look at this one and come here, you can see it is already aligned well, but this quote doesn't look the same as this one on mobile. So when I scroll at the bottom here, and what I can do is to select the .testimonial class, and then we use the first child selector, and we use the before pseudo selector, and all we will do is to change the left to be about 4px. Now when we look at that, you can see now it looks exactly how we want it. And that's it for that testimonial section. So you can see the progress is cool. Let's go ahead and move to our sign up form here. So what I will do is to just add another comment. So sign up and below here we'll select the .signup class, and we will add the padding to be about 40 px top and bottom, left and right to be 25 px, and we'll also change the position of bottom to be about negative 175 px. Let's select the form and change the flex direction. So right here I'll say form, and we say flex hyphen direction to be column. We can select the input fields and change their width. So at the bottom here I'll say input, and then we include the square brackets, type is equals to email, and comma, we select the other input with a type of submit. And what we want to do is to set the width to be 280 px and the margin to be 0 px, 0 px, 25 px, and 0 px. So we can see what we have, and you can look this section now looks much better. The only thing that is remaining here is the footer. So let's go ahead and style the footer. The thing that we'll do at the footer, will make it to be one column and also change the grid template areas. So right here I'll add a comment, footer, and I'll select the footer. We change the grid, so grid template columns to be 1 fr, and then we can change the padding to be 280 px, 27 px, 42 px, and another 27 px. So when I check at it, you can see that it's still taking the old form, and this is because of the grid template areas. So what we need to do is to change that. First of all, I'll add a column gap of 0 and a row gap of 20 px, and you can shorten this using the gap property. So right here we'll use grid hyphen template areas, and we will set the template areas to be a column. So the first one here will be a logo, the second will be location, the third will be contact, the fourth will be links. And the fifth will be more links, social hyphen icons. So when I scroll down here, you can see that they have taken that form. Okay, now let's select the social icons here and change their size. After the footer, I'll select dot social icons I, and we set the font size, the font hyphen size of 28px. We can position our social icons properly. So I have a problem with the net here. You can see that they are spaced widely, but when we come to the design, you can see that they are much closer together, and we can try to achieve this design. So what we can do is to select each of those icons, and I'll use these class names. So .far Facebook, and we will use this property of justify self to be at the end. Okay, and what that will do is that it will move this icon to the end. Okay, so we can also select the Twitter dot far hyphen Twitter, and what we will do here is to justify self to be at the center, and then I'll select the dot far hyphen Instagram, and I'll justify self to be at the start. So when I come back, scroll bottom, they are now much close together but having equal spacing. So these are the start, these are the center, these are the end, and they are now much better. So I think I love this design for the mobile, and this design was meant for 375px of iPhone X. There is one thing that remains that I haven't yet covered, because this image right here, it was meant for the desktop, and we have an image for the mobile. So we can try to finish this tutorial by covering this one. So this video is already long enough, and what I'll do, I'll come at the top here where we have the hero section, and I'll just paste the code for that background and then quickly explain it to you. So that is the code that we can use to make our background look better on mobile. So this is how we are adding the background. This is the color, and then this is the image bg curvy mobile.svg. We are pressing it at the center and saying no repeat, and then we are changing the background size here to be 100% by 130px. So this is also important. When I temporarily comment this one, you can see that retro background right there. But we also need this one to be dark, and it should match this one. So what I did, I used this after pseudo selector to achieve that. So I'll uncomment that one, and when I come back to my image here, and there is a problem, it doesn't look the same. So what we can do is that here we have a position of absolute, and we need to add a position of relative on the hero. So right here I can say position to be relative, so relative, and let's see if that makes a change. So now you can see we have all these background, but it is on top of everything, which is awful. So we can try to see what we can do. So right here I'll set the Z index to be higher than that one. So this will be 2, and let's see if we can see the image above that background. Nothing happens. Okay, the image is so far from the background, so I'll just copy this one and paste it on H2 here. I'll paste it on paragraph here. I'll paste it on the CTA too, and this is only for the hero section. So when I come back, everything is now on top of that background. So this is a way that I came up with. Maybe you can find a better way than this one, but this worked for me. So at the pseudo selector, maybe you may need more explanation. Here we are setting a content of empty, but we are setting the width and the height to be this as the specific measures 100% by 350 px, a bottom of 0 px, and then the background color we are setting it to be main bg, and that's all that we can do to make that background for the mobile to look much better. So if you wish to support my content, you can do so by subscribing to this channel, by liking this video, by sharing. You can donate to my PayPal. I'll leave a link at the description section below. So that's the desktop version. You have seen the mobile version, and I'll see you next, guys.